Hey there everybody, Joe here. Let's draw a person. I think it's best to start with what you already can do and build from there. And don't be ashamed of making progress from where you're already able to perform. So, stickman, right here. Maybe this is what you can do right now. No shame in that. So, I'm going to add information to this stickman. I'm going to make a neck. In drawing, we use lines to represent the edges of things. So an edge is where one object transitions to a completely different object, maybe. And so the edges of the neck are here and here. And let's just say I have two straight lines, and I'm going to make the height of those lines a little less than half the height of the head. So let's do it again. Now I'm going to draw a straight line across here, and I'm going to make the width of it 3 times the width of the head. So that means that if I drew a head on this side and a head on this side, then the line would come to here and to here. So let's do that again without drawing 3 heads. A little bit narrower than the head and a little less than half the height of the head. So now let's make the arms coming out of there so that we can get used to seeing these as shoulders. Hand, 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 body. Now, of course, if you draw all of your stickmen like this, people are going to think you're weird for drawing stickmen like that. That's just how it goes. I mean, progress is awkward, and you shouldn't hate progress for being incomplete. You just have to be willing to go down that awkward road for a little while until you transition all the way into something that looks better. Neck is a little bit less than half the height of the head, and then I'm going to do a slope that comes from the neck to the shoulders, but I'm not just going to make it anywhere. I'm going to make it connect to the neck a little bit lower than the chin. This is where it's going to connect. I'm going to make it connect to the shoulder right at its high point, right here. This one goes just below the halfway point of this line, just below the halfway point of this line. Slopes down low enough that a head can fit inside. I go straight across and make it symmetrical. And now I'll divide it in half. And now I have both muscles. Now it's time to add the lower part of this torso. Let's go as wide as the head for the stomach. We're going to come down straight. It's as wide as the head. How far down do I come? That's important. Well, here's that just more than half, just less than half pattern that we see all over a human body and all over other things too. If I do a rectangle, if I do that line I did initially right here, and I make a rectangle around this chest, then it's divided just less than half for the top section, that's the chest, and this section is just more than half to do the stomach. Okay, so then I'm going to divide that into 4 rows, 2 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's the 8 pack because he's a bodybuilder. Put a belly button right below the 3rd row. Let's do that again. That's new information, so we need repetition in order to commit it to memory. We're going to put this bicep as a rectangle that's coming down and just stopping before it gets to that circle, and then a tricep right next to it that comes inward as it approaches the elbow. Okay, smoother curve there, and then more sudden curve here. That's my forearm. So to do a hand fits inside of a face. So if you drew a rectangle that was about right there, if I put my palm on my chin and my middle finger will go about up to my forehead. We go longest line, back of the hand, shorter line, shorter line, shorter line. Then we go 1 pad right there that's just beyond this knuckle right here. Okay, so you can see that there's a wrinkle here at that knuckle. All right, so we can just put a line to represent that. There's this short little pad on your hand, then there's a pad here that goes to this knuckle, a pad here that goes to this knuckle, a pad here that goes to the end of the finger. Middle finger is longer than the first finger, so you can see if I put my hand like that, it gets further, 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 and then ends at a longer point. And then I have another finger behind that, and then I can put another finger behind that if I want to, that's shorter because that's the ring finger. And then I can put the pinky maybe curling up right behind the thumb. You barely see that. That's how you do a hand. Okay, so now let's shrink that down and go back to the guy and put it on. And now I'm doing the bicep right here that comes down about to this line. And then I'm going to put a hand on this guy that goes 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Longest, shorter, shorter, shorter for the finger. And then I want to make sure that that fits in a rectangle. It's right here. And so you can see that it does. And then I'll make my thumb just like I did. Now I'll just do a straight line right there because this is just a little one. 1, 2, 3 little curves. Very easy to draw a sideways hand. There's a hand coming out. Okay, so now I'll give you a little tip on arms. The higher I get, if his arm is going straight out, I can't draw the whole arm because it's too long to fit in the picture. But if it was going straight out, that shoulder is going to turn up high. So the shoulder was like this, right? Well, think of this being the pivot point right here. So that shoulder is going to raise up and be higher now, and it's going to shorten this muscle, and that shoulder is going to now come up like this, and you're going to have that similar half circle shape, but now instead of being cut in half like that and connecting here, this line is going to go all the way from the end of that to the chest like that, and this muscle is going to get stretched out thinner. So you'll go like this. You go in here and you're like this. That's how you make an arm raised up. That's your start point. And then you start your bicep just like you did before. Bicep right here. And then try to make it the same length. Right here, that's a visible separation from the abdomen muscles. So that's why I'm drawing that separately rather than just one line, because if a person has all these muscles, you will see that separate line that separates what's connected to their hip below and what's connected to the above torso. So this is how I separate it. So now I'm going to make these lines that slope down like that, just those oblique muscles, and then make his waist coming down like this. Okay, so now I've got my guy. Now he's got a very skinny waist. I can make it fatter than that, but you get the point. Now I'm going to draw this whole thing smaller to show you how to put the legs on this guy. So now I have to locate my hip. So pretty much the hip is only slightly above this groin. So if I take a line across here and I imagine a curve, on a guy you might not see very much hip at all. So I'm just going to do it slightly. So I'm going to come down my side and come out on the parenthesis just like this. But then before I get in and follow this line, I'm going to come down from there, and the hip is going to be the widest point right here, but only slightly widest. So let's go from the hip and do our stickman legs. And then we're going to make another one that comes down, and this one is just shorter than the distance up to this groin. Make it just shorter than that. So if you did a line about right here, then that's the lower part of the leg. For me, it's easier just to think a little shorter. I mean, honestly, people can be so different. If you just think a little shorter, it'll be all right. Just like the fingers, you know, are a little shorter. This is a little shorter than this. Legs and arms are similar. You know, they do similar things. See how that connected? And now I have a natural looking thigh. And so it's helpful to me to just visualize this. You don't need to draw that line there, but I visualize it. Okay, so this comes in, it's the bigger of the two curves. The shorter curve comes in and then goes under the kneecap, but it also goes right into the kneecap. There's two lines. One is a muscle that connects to the kneecap. One is just a bunch of hard tissue that is more of the knee joint. Let's do the whole thing again and see if we can do a smoother job. Let's make the hips a little wider this time because they can vary. All right, let's go out like this. A little bit wider on the hips, right there. All right, now the lower part of the leg. If we imagine this line here just gently curving into the shin, it gives us a good start point for this inner muscle that starts a little after the knee ends. So below where the knee ends, we're going to go a bump right here that's a little higher than center. Okay, so I made that widest part a little higher than the middle of that lower leg section. Okay, let's do feet. So I'm going to put little feet on that guy. Now the way I'm going to draw him, I'm just going to do a quick version. Here's the big one. Okay, I'm going to put ankles like this, and I'm going to go ankle, and then I'm going to go heel, and I'm going to draw it in perspective. And so I'm going to put this one line for the heel and maybe a little line for the tissue that's between the heel and that ball of the foot. Then I'll put another line right here next to it. This is how you do things in perspective. You know, you're just overlapping curves. Now what this is that curve that's under the big toe. And then right inside of that, I'll put a circle for the big toe. And then I'll go smaller, 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 and slightly higher too to represent going back further. Okay, so that's my toes. And then what I'm going to do is from this outer ankle, you're barely going to see that outer ankle because I'm going to have an arch that comes down right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. That one's turned a little bit more sideways. All right, so there's our full guy. So we can do a whole lot of detailing building inside of this, but this is a great thing to memorize because you'll find that once you have this memorized, you look at photographs, drawings, paintings of people, and you see these shapes, and you see the shapes that are within them. Once you have those memorized, then it becomes a lot easier to be familiar with what you're seeing, and you can maybe draw the shapes a little bit more organically. And what I mean by that is taking some of those lines that are very geometric and straight and curving them the way natural muscles might go. So your guy might end up looking like this. You might learn that, oh, well, a guy has kind of a jaw that's like this, so we'll make the head and add a little bit of detail to that. Make a slight curve right here, maybe just make a slight curve instead of making those go directly into each other. And I'll not complete my lines, more modified to look more natural. You know, I don't know that it's more detailed. So even though these look like I just threw these lines, they're just messy little lines, because I'm going off of that guide, it still gives the look of those muscles that, you know, in that more natural way. Now, in a lot of places I might use only little dots or just barely tilted lines in order to just define where a muscle is. I'm making a more natural looking guy, but still using those exact same shapes in my mind more as I do incomplete and curved versions of all those lines instead. So this is what you work toward as you get more and more familiarized with that first thing.